Hey, this is Xenu, and you're listening to Anti Moonboy News. We got a good one for you today. Lots of drama slop to cover. We have the Bitcoin conference as well, with some interesting tidbits. And of course, we have updates on Monero and in particular full chain membership proofs. There has been a setback, so we're going to have to highlight that as well. I'm actually in a really good mood right now. I'm on vacation. That's right, I am on the beach. Beach is pretty nice right now. It's actually fantastic. To get some rest, to breathe in the ocean air. You know what I'm saying? What do you think about that, robot?
Beep boop. I have sand in my gearbox. Beep boop.
Yeah, when we got to the beach, robot immediately ran out to build some sandcastles and in the process scared everybody who was on the beach. He hasn't figured out yet that, generally speaking, people are not used to seeing robots, walking around and stuff like that.
Beep boop. Their screams of joy made me feel happy, or at least I think I feel happy, because I cannot feel emotion. Beep boop.
Yeah. Anyways, let's now get to the Superchats, xmrchat.com/Xenu, if you would like to donate and appear on the show. First one here is from Schrodinger. He donates 0.05 XMR, and he says, "Thanks for the darknet market maximalism manifesto." Well, thank you very much for that donation, man. I've been getting a ton of comments, a lot of people supporting it. Posting it online or emailing me, DMing me, etc. Feels good. I'm really, really proud of it. And I think it really does a good job of kind of illustrating the mindset that somebody should have if they're an advocate for peer-to-peer cash, right? It's funny too, because I'll see people kind of dismiss it at first, and then later on they'll send me a message like, "Oh yeah, you got some good points and stuff." So yeah, I'm really happy with how it came out. The audio book was definitely a good idea too. I think that went over really well. Just because I have experience with recording on a mic and stuff, it actually I think had a pretty big impact. And also I'm starting to see a lot of people making edits with the camel image, which is pretty cool. See that kind of go viral because we all know where it came from, right? So if you see somebody post that image, you can give me a shout out. I'd appreciate that. But it doesn't really matter though, because if you know, right? And the next one here is from XMR for the win. He donates 0.014 XMR, and he says, "What are your thoughts on so-called extremist groups like National Socialists, for example, embracing and being vocal about Monero, as we've recently seen with the Monero Maverick drama on X?" Yeah, well, thank you very much for that donation. We have a lot to talk about on this subject here, but this is actually a good opening question to kind of get into it. What do I think about it? Well, I think it's great. I really have nothing against it. I just made a manifesto here that I was just talking about called Darknet Market Maximalism, right? And kind of the whole point of it is that cryptocurrency that's being used is cryptocurrency we should study, right? And, I am not endorsing darknet markets, but what I'm doing is I'm saying, hey, we can extrapolate very positive things out of something that is being used because of necessity. And so in that case, I'm not saying everyone's a drug dealer, right? What I'm saying is, hey, if you want to avoid price discrimination in the future, or if you would like to donate to a political group anonymously with peer-to-peer cash, you're going to want that peer-to-peer cash to exist. And what you're going to look for is something like the cryptocurrency being used on darknet markets. And that's what you're going to trust because it's being used in those markets, and therefore people who depend on it are using it, and therefore that is proof of concept, right? It's proof that it works, and therefore you're interested in it, right? And this goes into other groups as well. Now, of course, I'm mostly talking about it from the perspective of like a drug dealer, but there's like sick people out there, right? There's like pedophiles, right? And like I don't want to associate with those people, but they are using Monero, right? And that's just kind of how it is. There's terrorists using Monero, right? Just like how these groups of people use dollars every day, just like they use the roads that we're on and the postal service and like all these public things. You can't stop it, right? And that kind of leads me to my point where like, you know, Monero, it's better to view it as like a digital commodity. You know, it's something that everyone just has access to. And so it's going to be used by fringe extremist groups. And in this case, it's being used by, you know, ethno-nationalists. And yeah, I have no problem with that. In fact, I think a handful of them are fans of mine. Was lurking the Twitter discussion, which was a dumpster fire. to be clear, it was a complete dumpster fire. But I was lurking it, and I saw some people who are like fans of my show on both sides of the debate. So, you know, I don't really particularly care for what they're saying in some cases, but, you know, I think it's cool that they're fans of my show. And so anyways, now do National Socialists, do they need Monero? Not really. I don't think they depend on it necessarily, right? Like somebody who wants to buy drugs on the internet depends on peer-to-peer cash. I don't really think the far-right extremists actually depend on cryptocurrency, but it's very plausible they will in the future. So to back up though, for those who are unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, because like the thing is, this is localized on Twitter, and 95% of people who even use Monero have no idea this is even happening. And for what it's worth, I'm not going to like pick sides and like name names really. I'm just going to kind of give you kind of like a neutral summary of what's going on and kind of point out things that I've noticed. So anyway, there's actually a bit of an internal culture war happening in Monero right now. And it's not about nationalism versus libertarianism, which is actually what people are arguing about, but that's not what they're supposed to be arguing about. Okay. What's actually happening is there is this internal dilemma between the Moonboys and the Anti-Moonboys. That's actually what caused the start of this, more or less. And that's the tension right now that's kind of percolating. And that's what I've noticed. Now, I don't know if darknet market maximalism caused this. That's probably my ego talking. Okay, I don't think I caused this necessarily, but I think my ideas do have an impact. And in addition to that, we just had this price pump, and so we have more people in Monero. And it's interesting because in Monero we preach usage, right? And so now you have a lot of people who just want to make money, and so there's this like there's this conflict that's it's kind of happening there, right? And so, in my opinion, that's actually the real conflict. And so, this debate between the Nazis and the libertarians, I think this is all just noise. I will speak on that in a sec, though. But to be clear, I think this is actually between the Moonboys and the Anti-Moonboys. Okay, and to kind of like summarize what a Moonboy is and what an Anti-Moonboy is, start with the Anti-Moonboy. Okay, they are an advocate of peer-to-peer cash. And price to them is a byproduct. If it goes up, if the price goes up of Monero, great. If it goes down, great, right? The reason an Anti-Moonboy is interested in Monero is because they are passionate about peer-to-peer cash. And there's good things that happen with the price going up, but that's not why we're here. And it's a very kind of like calming, you know, kind of thing, because like if Monero were to go to zero, I won't feel like I wasted my time. Well, I would feel like I wasted my time in some ways, okay? But it wouldn't be that bad. It wouldn't be like, you know, I wouldn't be like devastated because I'm not like over leveraged here. I'm here because of idealism. And that's why a lot of my writing that I'm putting out, I'm not trying to make it Monero focus. I'm trying to make it peer-to-peer cash focus. At least that's my goal. So that's an anti-Moonboy. They're here for the peer-to-peer cash. However, they may make money along the way. The Moonboy, though, it's the opposite. They're here to make money. They're here to go to the moon. And using the cryptocurrency, that's a byproduct. To them, it's kind of an afterthought. Maybe they will use Monero, but that's not why they're here. They're here to buy low and sell high. And there's nothing wrong with that, for what it's worth. I'm not saying that you can't do that, but it is a cultural issue that, in Monero specifically, there's a real difference between people's opinions on this, because part of the culture that we built at Monero is using and really emphasizing using it correctly too. And this really just is not the case for most cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin is probably the biggest competitor we have here, which says a lot, right? But there's a ton of people in Bitcoin who preach self-custody and not relying on KYC, things like that. But generally speaking, that's pretty rare in cryptocurrency. Most people hold their crypto on these exchanges. It's it's really not good, but that's kind of just how it is. So in my opinion, this whole kind of yelling about politics thing, it's kind of overshadowing the bigger thing. And unfortunately, this wasn't really talked about, because once the politics took over, everything kind of just turned into a dumpster fire, and everything basically went on fire. I couldn't even read Twitter for like 3 days. I just was like, whatever. Just ignored everything. But this is what happens. So I know that people really like my content and stuff. And so, I know that there's a lot of people who share that ideology of I'm not in this really to get rich. I'm in this to, use digital cash. I don't want to just use a credit card, and which is based. If you are on the other side, not the end of the world, but I would encourage you to learn more, because that means you're becoming a more astute, a better user compared to 99% of people if you know about peer-to-peer cash, how to use it correctly. But the thing is, Monero's adoption on darknet markets, everyone points to this. The Moonboys point to this, right? Monero Maximalism is based on this. They say Monero's used on darknet markets. Nobody else is being used there. It took over Bitcoin's market share. It's the king of darknet markets, right? This is brought up all the time. But why is Monero used on darknet markets? What caused it? And really what caused it was that crypto-anarchism that a lot of people talk down on, but that's really what caused it. People, that grassroots, libertarian energy of using cryptocurrency, of being skeptical, of not just pumping something, but doing the dirty work and, auditing and double checking things and going through some growing pains. Monero did all that. And it did things in a slow but steady manner. And that's what has caused Monero to go into darknet markets. Okay? It wasn't because of price pumps. Other coins, so Monero had a pump and dump in 2017, right? It was way overvalued back then, because Monero was actually pretty shit back then. Not that isn't a diss. It's more like it just was. It's nothing compared to what it is now, right? But there were also other privacy projects that pumped back then too, right? Where are they now, right? The only one left is Zcash, and yeah, no one's using it. So why is Monero being used? Again, that crypto-anarchism, which is contrary to the Moonboyism, which is now starting to overtake our territory. Not the end of the world, but when we have people coming in, it's a good reminder of hey, we need to stick to using cryptocurrency, because that's what got us here in the first place. So yeah, I wanted to highlight this, because I think pretty much everybody kind of ignored this kind of thing that's going on, right? Because if you go to the original Twitter post, that's actually what started this, was somebody talking about Moonboyism coming into Monero, and then people started filling in their poo. That's literally, this is what happened. Someone was like, yep, I think there's a lot of Moonboys coming, and then just poo. Boom. Poo on the wall, poo on someone's face, poop everywhere. A lot of poop. And it got out of control really quickly. And it turned into this whole political flame war, which probably, you know what it was? There was a lot of tension with that, and they just had to get it out of their system. You know what I mean? It's kind of like if you've ever played sports, if there's like ever a beef between like two guys on the team, they're eventually going to have to fight it out. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's kind of like a locker room kind of settle the dispute kind of thing. I think that's kind of what happened here. It was kind of like a pressure release kind of situation. And that did happen. And then everything kind of went back to how it was. Because it seems like at this point, things are kind of died down again. But yeah, it totally like overshadowed, in my opinion, like the bigger issue, which is this Moonboyism versus Anti-Moonboyism. So yeah, regarding the politics side of it, I consider myself to be a crypto-anarchist or a cypherpunk. And so for me, I'm totally neutral on pretty much everything. And I really don't feel like sharing my opinion on certain things right now because frankly, it's irrelevant. I want to have my political kind of opinion here to kind of mirror Monero, which is politically neutral. Okay. And what's weird is everyone agrees with this, but they still had to like fling their poo at each other. I don't know. Whatever. But at the end of the day, like, it doesn't really matter what people believe in, so long as they're not like causing harm to people. Right. And that's pretty much it. So yeah, I think this is a good problem to have because it shows that people want to use Monero. Right. Can you imagine if Zcash had this issue? No, you can't. Because like there's only like 12 people using Zcash right now. And they would immediately ostracize anybody with anything close to National Socialist beliefs, right? But it's kind of funny though, because after people started getting into it, then there was this move to like talk it through kind of thing. And it's kind of like, this isn't like an after school special. Like I don't know what these guys thought was going to happen. But like if you don't agree with them politically, just don't talk to them. And don't put them on your show. Don't give them a platform. Right? Because you're just like you're making their voices louder. Again, like Twitter is like very small in the span of things. It's completely meaningless. Most people will not hear of this. Okay. But for whatever reason, I think it's just because you're kind of seeing the same people every day. It's kind of an echo chamber. Well, it is an echo chamber. And people's kind of views of the bigger picture kind of get construed. So anyway, people wanted to talk it over, and that ended terribly. It did not work out well. And yeah, Twitter is important for a cryptocurrency like Pirate Chain. Okay, they need to have engagement because it's just pump and dump stuff. But like Monero, it's a serious project. Later on today, we're going to be talking about full chain membership proofs. And the reason I know about this is because of the Monero Research Lab. They have weekly meetings that you can lurk. You can read them because it's all in the open. And these are guys doing really complicated stuff, right? Like that's important. The IRC chat logs, those are important. Just people who are constantly working on GitHub, making things, the actual adoption. Twitter flame wars doesn't mean anything. And it's already pretty much over at this point. Something like this is a good test run for like problematic Moonboyism. Because, so I talked about this last week where the people who are happy about the price increases now, like very happy about it, are like pretty much all people who I like anyways. So like I'm not like bothered by it. You know what I mean? I'm not really bothered by the Monero Moonboyism right now. I will be bothered by it though when you have people who are happy about the price going up who don't care at all about peer-to-peer cash. Once that starts happening, it's kind of like, well, why are we even here in the first place, right? And the thing is, I can't control something like that, but something like that is inevitable, especially for a project that's successful. And when you have that friction where somebody doesn't care about the crypto-anarchism, or they don't care about, the freedom and the privacy, that causes friction. And we're already kind of starting to see that as well, where people are mocking other people for being private. So that was the thing. So while the two sides were, in a flame war, they made a Twitter space, and the name of the space was Privacy Nerds versus Noticers. Okay. That was the name of the space. And I guess it was framed as the privacy nerds are the old school Monero guys. Okay. And the noticers, well, they're the brilliant new people who notice things. And this makes no sense to me, because I thought the whole point of these Twitter spaces was to argue National Socialism versus libertarianism. So why are you making fun of privacy? Or especially people who care about privacy. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense, because I know that there are people on the libertarian side who are terrible at privacy. Like absolutely terrible. And then there are people who are, nationalists who really care about privacy. So it doesn't make any sense. And so anyways, frankly, anybody who insults somebody else for caring about privacy is pathetic. It'd be like going to the gym and seeing somebody lift more weight than you and then being like, get a load of this guy. What a loser. You know what I mean? It's like, why would you mock somebody for self-improvement? You can say oh, I have a lot to learn. You can be humble. That's great. But mocking somebody, maybe it was a joke. I don't know. I've seen this thrown around here and there, and it's ridiculous though. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Okay. And the thing is, when you have more of the Moonboy kind of adjacent crowd come in, that type of energy becomes more and more popular. And that just sucks. Because then eventually we're going to get, a situation where everybody who's in Monero, or at least seemingly everybody, doesn't care about peer-to-peer cash or privacy. So yeah, that was stupid. Now, throughout all this, though, I stayed out of it because I don't really care about the politics of it. Completely meaningless to me, right? I did say one thing though. Somebody he made this claim that Twitter had been dead until he arrived, and this is one of those National Socialist kind of guys, and I had to say something, So I was just like. I said that that's completely dismissive to everybody who's been here working their butts off, right? Which is true. And the likes that I got on that tweet prove that, right? Everyone who was lurking this was probably thinking the same thing. Why is this guy putting us down? Because the thing is I've been, involved with Monero now for quite a while. And yeah, we've built this culture here. And that culture, that's why Monero's on the darknet. So it's really important to keep that energy. I love the energy coming in though, where they want to get more people to, use Monero. That's fantastic. It kind of reminds me of reinforcements. I'm thinking of a Band of Brothers, that reinforcements episode, where you get, the reinforcements come in and they got more energy because they haven't gone through this cycle stuff, and so they're able to, do some more shilling. That's great. I'm definitely encouraging of that. But putting down people who have been here before, really working their butts off, again, just why? I don't know. A couple other topics here. This one's important though. So there has been some people pointing out what if developers start leaving, because of these opinions? And so I actually did reach out to a developer that I know who like talks to people, okay? And I asked him like about this topic and all that. And he basically told me like, nah, I mean, this doesn't really have an impact on anything. It does have an impact on morale, but it's completely different for different developers. And it's not like a yes or no kind of thing. Now there's a lot to this. I don't want to like speculate too much because, again, I'm speaking on behalf of like other people, but like I kind of like poked around and, you have, for example, Monero Moo, who is, I think he has more commits than anybody else in Monero. So he's worked his butt off on this project. And it's funny, actually, he says that he wants to work on Monero because he wants to have a tool to fight against Nazi beliefs, which is kind of an interesting twist on it because people have been saying that, what if we have a tool that only, Nazis want to use? Well, he wants peer-to-peer cash to fight against that. And it's true. Like if we have a commodity, it can be used by anybody, right? So, I think that's kind of funny. I think a lot of developers actually share that opinion. Now with Luke Parker, he is stepping back. I do know that. Was it caused by being on social media a lot? Probably, but I don't know. He's an adult. He knows what he wants, right? It's really meaningless to speculate about it. Developers have come and gone in the past. Monero is going to be fine. Okay. So, if he says he's going to leave, then that's fine. I want to really dwell on it though, because a lot of people really want peer-to-peer cash. And, I really hate to like people are, using this and then saying that, Luke is holding us hostage. No, he's not. He's never said anything like that. He just voiced his opinion, and frankly, he went back to work. Like I think he's pretty much just off Twitter now, which is probably a good idea because Twitter, for a developer, Twitter sucks because you're constantly dealing with idiots. One thing they don't tell you about becoming a content creator for a privacy project like Monero is that like once a month you have some crazy schizo make some schizo post about you. And so mind you, I only posted that one thing in this entire flame war. I wasn't even contributing to the politics, right? Because I'm neutral. I don't care. And I was just like, hey, people have been working on this project for a while. Don't be dismissive of them. That's all I did. Stepped right back out, right? Like I like went in with an umbrella up, defend myself from the poop. Okay, I was like, hey, this is guys, just don't be dismissive. Okay, I'm out. Boop, and I left. Right. That's all I did. But yeah, even though that's the only thing I said, I still had some guy write a schizo post about me doing. I don't even know what. Like it was just the dumbest thing ever. It's like what the hell, man. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think Twitter, it just doesn't really have that much impact on things, and something like this, you know what it is? It's actually a good test of how we would handle a Michael Saylor-esque character coming in and, developing a cult of personality. I mean, that would be way worse. That would be way more damaging. Because like this, in this case, there's really nothing at stake here. I mean, if people want to just ignore these, the extremists, they can just ignore them. It's very simple. But in the case of like a Michael Saylor type of figure, one, that would have direct financial impact, which is crazy. And two, it would bring in a ton of Moonboys. And those Moonboys would be loyal to him. And that's kind of what we're seeing right now with Bitcoin, where you have people who are essentially like diehard supporters of somebody, and that person then has a lot of influence. And that's not a good thing. That makes a project actually centralized on something, which in today's case with Bitcoin, people are centralized now about Bitcoin being a store of value and not a medium of exchange. And a lot of that has to do with people like Michael Saylor who've like pushed that narrative. So, this is nowhere near as bad as something like this. And like I said before, this is going to die down. People aren't even going to be talking about this next week. I mean, we'll probably have a price pump and everyone will be distracted again. So anyways, that is all I got on this. I think I covered pretty much all my bases here. So, Robot, what'd you think about that?
Beep boop. The coffee maker in this house we are renting is rather exquisite. Beep boop.
You didn't hear a word I said, huh? All right. Let's move on. We got some news to cover now, so let us get to that. So starting off, we have to talk about full chain membership proofs. This is an ongoing situation where pretty much every week it's being worked on by the developers and researchers of Monero. And so there has been a setback recently. Has nothing to do, by the way, with what we were just talking about. Okay? Nothing to do with that at all. But it does have to do with the actual math that's behind the project. So basically, whenever you have work being done for, new cutting edge technology, it needs to be audited. And so right now, full chain membership proofs are going through a lot of double and triple checking to make sure, everything matches out, everything works out. And so essentially, full chain membership proofs, they have a technique that makes the transaction verification fast. But now that technique, it needs a lot more mathematical backing because the cryptography reviewers did not think the existing work was sufficient. Basically, all this information is available in the previous 3 Monero Research Lab logs, but basically without this cryptographic technique, full chain membership proofs would have problems with scalability. And of course, we don't want that, ideally, right? So this is a temporary setback, if not a major setback. How much is it going to set us back? Kind of unknown, but it is something that the developers are actively working on, and I'm sure we're going to have more information next week and the week after. And I'm sure they're going to be talking about it at MoneroCon. So yeah, this is unfortunate, but it's actually a good thing in a way because having these audits, it's going to save our ass from an exploit happening, right? So this is why we do this work. All the time you'll hear about, what if we have an inflation bug and things like that. Well, this is what prevents these exploits, right? It's rigorous double and triple checking of the math and trying to break things, which is really what they're trying to do when they're auditing it. And so in this case, I guess there was some sort of break. Now, I'm not going to try to explain what this is because this is beyond me. I'll be honest with you guys. But if you want to go and read the logs, they're available. They're IRC logs of Monero. Go to the Monero Research Lab. Every Wednesday they have a meeting. So I guess the past 3 Wednesdays they've been talking about this. And it was brought to my attention. So an unfortunate setback, but I don't think this is going to delay things too long. But I don't know. So there you go. Up next, LNVPN announced their payment statistics for May 2025. Now, they just added Monero. This is a Lightning Network service. They just added Monero. So how did Monero do compared to Lightning Network? Now, this is one of the only times I've ever seen Lightning Network come out ahead. They did beat Monero for the payment statistics for 2025 of May. So this is the past month. But Monero had a good showing. So it says here. So yeah, if we go by payment methods by amount, Lightning Network is at 74%, Monero is at 9%. And if we go by payment methods by count, or the amount of times it was used, Lightning Network is at 81%, and Monero is at about 8%. So Lightning Network in first, Monero in second place. I think that's a great showing. I mean, Monero kind of came in brand new and actually had a pretty good chunk right off the cuff. So really like to see that. We'll see if that holds over in the next month as well. But yeah, shout out to LNVPN for adding Monero. They kind of just did that randomly recently, and some good numbers there to start things off. And the last thing I have here before we get to the Bitcoin conference stuff, I am going to keep the news a little short this week just because I've been kind of busy, mostly because I get my news from Twitter and I just have not been on Twitter. But anyways, I do have this article here about Samourai. The defense for Samourai Wallet has submitted a motion to dismiss, which I think this is just normal for court stuff. But basically, they have a whole thing that they submit to the judge. So if the judge wants to throw the case out, now they have the opportunity to do that. So you can find that pretty easily if you want to look for that on the internet. So the Bitcoin conference happened this past week. And actually, from everything I've heard from people who attended, it seemed like a good time. I guess spirits are pretty high. And yeah, I do lose sight of that, right? Because, I am on an echo chamber, right? So, people who do support Bitcoin and go to these shows, a lot of them probably are pretty cool people that I would hang out with. And so, I have my anti-Moonboy rhetoric. From what I've read from people who did attend, there were a lot of people very open to, using peer-to-peer cash and using Monero and privacy and things. So that's really awesome to hear. So, is that reflective of the wider market? I'm not so sure, but it's good to hear that people who were attending the conference were at least open to suggestions. And as we're going to talk about, blockchain analytics is coming into play in a lot of different cases, and people are starting to realize that this is not going to go away. The analytics are only going to improve, and if we keep having these data leaks, like what happened with Coinbase, it's scaring the crap out of a lot of people. It's really scaring them, and so privacy is just going to become more and more popular because you want to protect yourself if you have self-custody. Anyways, we're going to start with Michael Saylor, the Pied Piper. And this went viral pretty briefly, but it was impactful. And even the staunchest Bitcoiners that I know were turned off by this one. But anyways, he was asked about having proof of reserves. And he gives a very sketchy answer. So Michael Saylor, of course, and MicroStrategy are buying a lot of Bitcoin. I mean, he's going to own like 10% of the supply or something ridiculous like that. He's buying a fuckload. And with MicroStrategy, he's just buying a lot, right? Just a ton of Bitcoin. I don't know how much he has, but it's like a big total at this point. And what's concerning for a lot of people is that it is unclear if he actually has control of the Bitcoin. And his answer, the answer he gave was very suspect. I don't feel like playing it. There's a 2-minute version, and then there's a longer version. I haven't even listened to the longer version because, I don't trust this guy at all. But basically, he's making all these excuses for why he can't show proof of reserves, which makes absolutely no sense. But part of what he says is that it would be, what was the phrase he used? I should probably have my notes in front of me, but basically, he made it seem like he could get attacked. It was like an attack vector if he shared the address that has his Bitcoin, which makes absolutely no sense. If you know how Bitcoin works, why would a public address be bad? This is actually one of the benefits of having a transparent, blockchain. You just show it, and it proves absolutely everything. Like if you have the Bitcoin, you can prove that you have it. So why isn't he doing that? And I think that he is doing some accounting. Okay, it's accounting tricks, which I think he actually went to jail for, right? He's doing accounting back in the .com bubble. He went to jail for it, or at least he had to pay a huge fine. Now, basically, I don't think he's actually holding on to all the Bitcoin. I think what he's doing is he is buying a lot of Bitcoin, but then he's lending it, or he's doing different things with the Bitcoin. Maybe he's selling and then buying it back later. All he's doing is he's announcing he's buying bulk at a certain point, and then I think he's kind of playing around with that Bitcoin because he doesn't actually have to show proof that he still holds it. And if he's doing that, it could also be argued that everyone else is also doing that. And in that case, you're going to have a situation where you're going to have much more than 21 million Bitcoin. And I'm not the first person to say this, but like, I think that is actually what's happening here, where it's fuckery, basically. They're playing around with Bitcoin that they're claiming that they're holding. It's fractional reserve lending, right? This is nothing new. Now, it did come out that there was a chain analytics company that claims to have tracked down Saylor's Bitcoin. I have not looked into this specifically, but are they actually watching these addresses? Does it actually account for all of the Bitcoin? Is there any movement in any of these addresses? I'm not so sure if someone's actually looked into this in more detail, because I don't believe it. It just doesn't make any sense, right? Why not just have one wallet, the Saylor wallet? That would be super bullish if you had something like that where you could point to, where it's like, that's mine. I just don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. And me and many other people out there who are skeptical of this Pied Piper, this, in my opinion, is the collapse that's going to happen in the future. If he turns out to be fraudulent, which all signs point to it, then you're going to see a absolute meltdown. Because if you can't trust Saylor, who else can you trust? And that's the problem, because everyone's kind of putting in all this trust into him, and all these other fucking, you got MSTR or whatever, MSTY, all these like other, crypto buying investment startups. It's all nonsense. But yeah, his answer though did not it did probably more damage than anything else he could have said. But again, like I talked about this in my manifesto, right? Where Saylor, he's been caught multiple times in the past, and every single time nothing happens. And the reason nothing happens is because he owns Bitcoin now. He's the CEO. He can do whatever he wants. The Moonboys all support him. He has a majority rule. So like nothing happened, and everything's just back to the way it was. It got like one day of Twitter outrage, and then everyone moved on. You had some people who were like, what were they doing? They were like arguing for Saylor. Like they were all mad, like, oh, it's all FUD. And then it kind of just died down after that. Markets right now in general seem okay. I don't know. I'm an Anti Moonboy. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about when I'm looking at charts. All right, I'm not going to pretend like I know what's going on. But what I will say though is that I don't trust Saylor at all. And so to see him like answering this question, you could just tell by his body language too. He's just like clearly uncomfortable. And man, if he goes down, I really should start like screen capping these fucking takes about how Saylor is such a genius. I don't have the heart to do it though. Yeah, his body language when he was answering that question though, he looks like a little kid caught in a lie. It's pretty funny. Anyway, we also had Ross Ulbricht give his speech. I actually have not had a chance to listen to it yet, so I think next week I'll have a longer form answer here talking about this. I did see some Bitcoiners were mad because he talked about other cryptocurrencies very briefly, but he did. But I will get my full thoughts on that once I do watch his speech, because I have not seen it yet. However, just breaking today, though, he received a massive donation of, I think, like 300 Bitcoin. So that's like $30 million that he received. It was received through a mixing service too, a centralized one, very odd circumstances. Yeah, it's a weird story. I'm not really sure. But here's the thing though, and the reason I'm bringing this up, I'm going to ignore the people who are saying, oh, he's given the Bitcoin to himself. I don't think that's what happened. But here's the interesting thing though, is that wrench attacks are so in the narrative right now in the mainstream that this is actually the first thing that a lot of people thought. Well, the second thing. The first thing was that Ross gave the Bitcoin to himself. But the other major reaction to this was, oh, that's really dangerous because people are going to know that he has all that Bitcoin, he can get wrench attacked. Like, I am seeing that reaction from a lot of different people. And I don't know what that entails, you know? It's actually starting to shift into that if you have custody of your cryptocurrency, that is actually reckless and dangerous and risky because you can get wrench attacked. How fucked up is that? I think we're actually at that point. People are going to start to reach that conclusion. We saw this earlier this year with Plan B, where he said he no longer holds Bitcoin, he just holds the ETFs. You know, that's going to become more and more popular. I don't think people want to hold Bitcoin. They're too scared now. These wrench attacks are really scaring people. And so in this situation, if that's like one of the first things you're thinking of, I mean, that's just like how much like the fear of wrench attacks have now, you know, sprouted up into the mainstream. Is that going to be the new viewpoint? Well, I don't want to get attacked. I'm just going to have a bank hold my crypto. I'll just have Michael Saylor hold my crypto. Then he's just going to lend it out for more. Anyone else think that we're just kind of getting back into the system we're trying to fight out of? Anyone? You got to give them credit, man. You got to give that traditional finance system a lot of credit. They're very good. They're very good at weaseling their way back into things. I don't know. Okay. I'm on vacation. I've already talked enough today. And I'm going to go sit out on the porch. And I think that's what I'm going to do. Okay, I'm going to leave now. Thank you guys for your support and everything. It means so much to me. I got merchandise if you would like to order that. I will be a week late, though, because I'm going to be on vacation for the next week. But you can go order it. And I will send the shirts back once I get back. But that's at antimoonboy.com/merch. You will see the t-shirts I have for sale. Or if you'd like to send me a super chat, you can at xmrchat.com/zenu. Otherwise, guys, hey, thank you so much for the support. And I'll see you guys next week.